and illustrated from the Spanish. It's not illustrated. Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a reading wrap up for all of you. I have 5 books to chat with you guys about, so if you're interested to see what I have read recently, then go ahead and keep on watching. The first book was kindly sent to me by Catapult. That's Humiliation by Paulina Flores and translated from the Spanish by Megan McDowell. This is a short story collection that I would say overall has a very melancholy tone to it. This is not one of those like happy feel-good reads by any means. I did really enjoy Flores's writing, but I have to say that some of the stories just were really a miss for me. I found that overall I either really liked the story or I really didn't. And I think when I averaged all the stars out as I rated each story individually, it was like 2.5 stars. But the ones that were 5 stars were really, really good. There's a lot of themes of poverty, and she uses children as narrators frequently, and there's a lot to be said about the relationship between a child and their mother or a child and their father and family dynamics. So I wouldn't say that this is a bad book, but neither did I absolutely love it. It's one of those that it's just hard to talk about because it is a short story collection. But it is a quick read and she has some interesting things to say, and I will definitely look for more from Flores in the future. But always, it was great to read a translated work, and again, huge thank you to Catapult for sending this to me. The next book I'm going to chat with you guys about is Swamplandia by Karen Russell. This is a lot of book to unpack. So the premise of this story is we have our main character, Ava Bigtree. She's 13 years old, and her family owns this amusement park type of situation in which everything is about alligators. So they own and keep alligators, and the big draw of their park and the entertainment that they provide is that her mother, Lola, will swim with the alligators. She dives into the giant pit where they all live and swim, and then swims to safety. And when Lola dies of cancer, their amusement park slowly starts to crumble away because what largely drew people to their amusement park is no longer there. And this story is about Ava trying to handle her grief of losing her mom, of the fact that her dad kind of appears to be in denial about what their situation is. Her older brother Kiwi feels like his dad is ignoring everything, and he decides to go off to find a job at what his dad considers to be their main competitor, which is this huge theme park called the World of Darkness. And then there's Ozzy, Ava's older sister, who may or may not talk to ghosts and be dating them. So it's a very quirky, weird story. It's also very dark. It's a playfully dark story with very clever writing. And you go, my phone's going off, you go a whole lot of places in this book that I didn't anticipate. And throughout it, there is this whole theme of being an outsider because the Bigtree family so rarely comes into contact with the mainland. They live off the coast of Florida. I don't know if I mentioned that. And their only interactions with the average citizen is through their park. They grow up in a very naive, sheltered way. All of these characters, I would even argue the dad, are very naive. And Kiwi and Ava especially. And Kiwi becomes one of our point of view characters. His point of view is third person, whereas Ava's is first. We see Ava and Kiwi struggle with the fact that they are these outsiders who really don't totally understand how the world works. And it's about how they figure out how the world does work and the struggles that they go through. And I have to say, for me, the first half of this book was much stronger than the second half. Ava comes into contact with this man that's referred to as the Birdman, who says that he will help her find her sister Ozzy, who's run off with one of her ghost boyfriends, and they don't know where she is. And we're talking about the swamplands of Florida, and it's an unforgiving, dangerous place. But the story just really derailed from there for me. I felt like the focus of the story shifted to a place where I didn't want it to be. I wanted to know more about Ava's grief, and I wanted to know more about Kiwi. And I have to say my favorite parts of this book were Kiwi, the older brother's portions, his point of view, just because he did so much growing. Overall, I think Russell's writing is really good. It's dark, it's clever, and I appreciate that. But the story just was a miss for me, and some of it may have gone over my head, but it was a very, very odd reading experience. If you guys have read this book, please let me know. I would love to know what your thoughts are. I'd love to discuss it with you just because there's a lot to unpack and a lot of strange things that happen in this book. So there you have it, Swamplandia. Some of you will have probably seen a good chunk of my reading experience of this book as I did vlog it, and that was The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart by Holly Ringland. I picked this book up for Aussie April, as Holly Ringland is an Australian author, and this story also takes place in Australia. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this story. It was very, very popular last year on BookTube, and for good reason. In this story, we are following Alice Hart, who at the beginning of this book is a young girl who loses her parents in a horrible accident. And then she's sent off to live with a grandmother she didn't know that she had that runs this flower farm. And at this flower farm, her grandmother brings in women who are in difficult situations, whether it be from poverty or abuse or a variety of other situations, and teaches them how to garden, and specifically how to communicate with flowers. All of these flowers mentioned in this book are native Australian flowers that all have very specific meanings, and they use these flowers to communicate with one another and tell stories to one another. And so this is about Alice growing up in that situation, grieving for her parents, not fully understanding everything that's going on. And this story covers a huge amount of time. We see Alice when she's about 9, I believe, 7, 9, somewhere around there, a young girl, and then again when she's about 16, 18, and once again when she is a grown woman. And we watch Alice try and unpack her past, her parents' relationship with her grandmother, and all the relationships that she has and experiences along the way. And it's really, really beautifully told. And during a part of reading this book, it went to a place that I didn't really enjoy, but looking back, I understand why she did it, and I think it was good that she made that choice, even though at the moment I didn't like it, and I was frustrated with Alice as a character. And one thing that I also feel like I need to note is the fact that there are a lot of point of view characters in this book. I think I tallied them all, and there were 11 different point of views, and some of them were just for a very, very short, brief moment. But I think what I appreciate about this book is Ringland didn't feel this need to tie everything together perfectly. Not everyone was beautifully connected, and I found that to make it so much more realistic. But this story has so much heart in it, so much love, so much loss and grief, and it's all packaged in this beautiful physical book with illustrations at the beginning of each of the chapters. I mean, I'm just about to drop that book. And it's a stunningly published story that I highly recommend. There's a reason so many people love it, and it would be a great spring read. It has gorgeous nature writing. You get to see all areas of Australia throughout this book, and it really is a beautiful story. There's a reason people have talked about it. It's worth the hype, you guys. Another book you will have seen me read in one of my recent vlogs and loved is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a YA book that just knocked my socks off. Holy cow. I figured I was gonna like this book. It sounds like a total Amy book, but oh my gosh, you guys, I loved it so much. So if you don't know, this is a story in which Aphrodite, the goddess Aphrodite, is telling Hephaestus and Ares one of her favorite love stories. And this love story is between Hazel and James, and then Aubrey and Colette, that occurred during World War I. And while she's telling this story, we're currently in the 1940s, in the middle of World War II. And the emotion that is packed into this book, or even just a scene or a sentence, is incredible. Her ability to make you feel things and root for these characters and I would like just be invested. I was so invested. I was so concerned about what would happen to these characters is impeccable. I cared so much while reading this book. And I mentioned this in my vlog. I don't usually annotate YA books. I just don't find the need to. I was about 100 pages in and I had to. I had to start. I had no intention of doing that, and then I had to because I just loved it so much. There was so much I wanted to say and underline and dog ear and write, and yes, I do all of those things in my book. I'm not sorry, and I won't be sorry. But I really can't recommend this book enough. Just a little bit about the characters. Hazel is a classically trained pianist who meets James at a local dance, and they very quickly feel a connection for one another. James is off to war, and he's very uncertain and scared, and justifiably so. Colette is she's a Belgian orphan who is volunteering for the YMCA in France to just help out and keep the soldiers' moods happy and afloat, just to be a breath of fresh air. And Aubrey is an African-American jazz player who joins the army in a way that's a little bit different than most because he's also part of a band, and it's about how him and Colette get to know each other. I love this book very, very much. I think that it is very well balanced concerning the fun that comes from this book being narrated by Greek gods, but also the fact that there are very heavy, hard-hitting topics such as discrimination and race and what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a soldier and war. It's all balanced beautifully, and I know I said this already, I cannot recommend it enough. Read it, you guys. Just, even if you're not a YA reader, I think you should give this one a shot. It's just beautifully, beautifully told. The last book I'm going to chat with you guys about is March by Geraldine Brooks. I picked this up for Aussie April as well, as the fact that I have recently reread Little Women, as you guys know, one of my favorite books ever. And in this, Geraldine Brooks gives her idea of what she think and who she think Mr. March was, the March girls' father, who's away at war. And this book is haunting. I read this book in a single day because I couldn't put it down. From the very first page, you are gripped. You are just swept away by this story. And this story has so much depth. There are so many things that Brooks discusses through Mr. March that I just think were incredibly done. So Mr. March is off at the war. He's working as a preacher, and you quickly realize that Mr. March's idealism and way that he views the world, a lot of people don't appreciate, and the world doesn't really align with what he wants it to be. He comes into contact and sees so much violence and just horrible things happening to humans everywhere that it changes him, and it can't help but change him. And throughout this story, you also will go back in time to his first time that he ever visited the South, to when he meets Marmee, to when the girls are born, to how he comes to be a preacher and how he comes to enlist for the war. I'm struggling talking right now. And it just creates for this incredible reading experience. You see him struggle with his faith and the things that he preaches, despite the fact that he's surrounded by all of this horrible war and violence, and the discussion on slavery and what that means. And, you know, the references to Little Women can both be very subtle, but also very, very intentional and obvious. And I think that balance was really, really successful. I actually really struggled to talk about this book because it hit me in a way that I didn't anticipate. Because Little Women is so light in comparison to this. Brooks does not shy away from the grotesque, from the dirty, from the gross. And I think her writing is so amazing. I once again found myself reading passages out loud to Aaron because I just couldn't believe that this came out of someone's brain, that someone wrote this and created this image that will be forever branded in my head. And I just think this is an absolutely incredible book. It absolutely deserved to win the Pulitzer Prize. And I think that you should read Little Women before you read this, if I'm being honest. I think you'll get more out of it. I think the contrast between the two make for an interesting discussion in and of themselves, but everything else that you get to approach and unpack in this book is impeccable. I know I've already used that word for another book in this this wrap-up, but this book astounded me, and it's not very big. And like I said, I read it in a single day, and I think this is a book that a lot of people should be reading for so many reasons that we're not going to go into right now because I'm rambling at this point about this book. But just know that March was incredible. Geraldine Brooks, her writing, just, it works for me. I did not love her first book that I read by her, or the first book I read by her, Year of Wonder. I didn't enjoy the story, loved her writing. This, everything met up perfectly. So, guys, this book, it's so haunting. So haunting. Okay, guys, there you go. There are 5 books that I have read recently. If you have read any of them, let me know what you thought, or if you plan on reading them now, let me know that as well. I love chatting with you guys in the comments, and I just want to say a big thank you to all of you who spend the time to watch my videos and to comment and to just make this space on BookTube for me so very special and rewarding. I don't tell you guys enough how much I appreciate you and want to thank you for the time you spend with me. It means a lot. But if you guys like this video, go ahead and like it. And if you loved it and you haven't yet, please subscribe, and we will see you in my next video. Happy reading. Oh, so sleepy. The cow's so sleepy. These scenes are sentences. Oh my god. Okay. Whew. I think we need to start that one over.